Welcome back, everybody, to the show. I am your host, as always, Jay Villain, aka That Villain Jay. And tonight, we have a very special treat for you. A very different treat. Now, I don't normally do meta commentary on this channel unless I'm doing deck previews. I've done a little bit of it, and I've enjoyed it. And the feedback's been pretty good. So I figure I'm going to get into the arena, if you'll allow me that pun, of a little bit of meta commentary about what is going on with Arena, the systems, the games, and different things I want to see changed, different things I want to see adjusted, different things I want to see coming, and what I think might happen to Arena. So right now, what we're going to do is we're going to take a look at the top 5 cards of Alchemy that I think need an adjustment, and I'm expecting to be adjusted in the upcoming, after the tournament and the upcoming sets. The Alchemy adjustments that I'm thinking are coming down the pipe, and I think need to come down the pipe. But before we get back to that, I need you to do something for me. If you're new here, tenderly press that like button. Gently press that subscribe button, or else, well, guys, the like and subscribe will come and brutally maul you if you don't. You can join us on our stream every night at twitch.tv/thatvillainej for all the live streaming goodness. Shout out to all the first-time streamers that are here. We have lovely guys like, who's here tonight? That's new. Through the Breach. What is up, Through the Breach? We've got another fine gentleman here by the name of, where is he? Manny Dragon. Manny Dragon is here too, so you can come by and get your first streamer shout out. You can join us on our Discord community for all the latest news and information and share your opinion. And also, guys, I want a lot of comments on this one, okay? I want to see what your opinions are. I want to hear back from you. Give me some feedback on what you think my top 5 and a bonus one, non-alchemy card that needs adjustment, what you think of my opinions here. What do you think about what I'm going to go over here? And do you think I've got it right? Do you think I've got it wrong? Am I missing something? Am I overemphasizing something? Let me know. Let's get a discussion going. What's up, Gurner? Gurner Wurr. How you doing? So, what are we going to talk about first? Well, we got to talk about the dragon in the room. Fearsome Whelp. This card is A1. Okay? This card is absolute banger. I made Mythic with Boros Dragons. Okay? And it's basically thanks to this card. If you have Fearsome Whelp in your hand and you're able to play him early, and you absolutely have a stack full of dragons, he is brutal. He just makes it so effective. Dragons are so hasty, so powerful. They can gain life. They can generate mana. They can just do everything right now. That he is just unbelievably effective. If they don't have early removal for him, and you're on the play and you can put him down, because he immediately does it at the end turn. He doesn't have summoning sickness. His trigger immediately goes off with Fearsome Whelp. I'm expecting this one. Probably this is the first nerf that I'm going to see. A lot of people are running anti-dragon tech right now, but I still think this is probably my highest probability. They might not. They might surprise me and not change it. I think that the simplest change, now here's what I think. The simplest change is that choose a dragon card in your hand. That spell costs 1 less to cast. I think the issue is with each dragon card in your hand. If it did this for one dragon, it would be effective, but not crazy. And again, we're just trying to smooth that curve out, okay? We're just trying to smooth that curve. I think that is most likely the change that we're going to see, is that it's at the beginning of your end step, choose a dragon card in your hand, it perpetually gains, this spell costs 1 less to cast. That's probably the most likely change that I see coming for this one. Does it need it? I think it does. I think a lot of people are tired of dragons, because even when I run my dragon decks, people don't even want to watch them anymore. They're so tired of this. So that's kind of my idea for Fearsome Whelp. The other booster that we've got to talk about, of course, is going to be Pup. You know him. Tenacious Pup. There he is, ladies and gentlemen. A 1/2 wolf. These are both kind of in the same theme, where you have these early drops that are boosting so much stuff coming in. This is basically a staple in Alchemy Green. Does it need adjustment? I'm not sure that it does. Is it likely to get adjustment just because it's so high in the meta? I think it might. That's my prediction anyways. A 1/2 1-drop is already pretty good, and you gain 1 life when it hits, all for an uncommon. Then whenever you cast your next creature spell, that creature enters the battlefield with an additional 1/1 counter on it, and vigilance. When you pair this with the other wolves that you have, something like Werewolf Pack Lead or something like that, that's a 2-drop, all of a sudden you have a 4/4 vigilance trample on the board on turn 2. It just adds a level of power into green that is just unbelievably high. All of that additional stuff. And again, all it needs to do is successfully resolve. It doesn't need to be on the battlefield. It doesn't need to stay on the battlefield. All it needs to do is successfully resolve, and it immediately infers all these benefits. And you still get a creature out of it. I think that the most likely change that's going to be coming to this one, if change does come to this one, again, these are all just my predictions. These are all my gut feeling predictions, is that it will let you choose instead. The next creature comes to the battlefield comes with your choice of a 1/1 counter, trample, or vigilance, or maybe 2 of those things. I think all 3 of them is really the issue. Everything else is really balanced, but the amount of stuff that the turn 2 drop or the turn 3 drop hits, I think is really what makes it ultra effective, because that is a lot of stuff. To get all of those things is really hard to do separately, and the fact that Tenacious Pup can do all of them all at once is a whole nother story. So I think that's probably the biggest change that's going on. Hey, how you doing, man? Tokyo Gringo. All right, so now to talk about the big one, guys. Now to talk about the one that's on everyone's mind, right? You know what it is. I don't even have any, so I have to go to not collected here because I refuse to craft them. Keys to the Archive. Does anybody like playing against this? I'm asking a genuine question. When you see somebody running an Azorius Keys deck or an Orzhov Keys deck, are you happy? Or are you miserable? Keys to the Archives is one of those cheap spammy things that just attracts a certain kind of player that wants to get this alternate win state. It has an enormous spellbook of classic Magic cards in it that you can run through. And luckily right here we have the main problem. The reason people spam this card over and over again is they're looking for the alternate win state, Approach of the Second Sun. There are 2 things wrong with this. There are 2 things wrong with the Keys to the Archive. 1, it should be a legendary artifact. You should not be able to have multiple Keys to the Archive out. That's number 1. First of all, it's not Keys to the Archive, it's Key to the Archive, meaning that it is singular. There's only one of these. There's one person that can open the archive. You should not be able to have 4 of these out on the board. That's ridiculous, because you get to the point where if they have Teleportation Circle and 3 of these out, they're just spamming Keys to the Archive over and over again. The power creep is crazy, especially in Control. Number 2, all you have to do is strike Approach of the Second Sun from the spellbook. Replace it with something else. I don't know what they should replace it with, but the only reason that people play this card right now, the only reason they play it is so they can try to spam Approach. That's it. That's the only reason this card exists, is so you can spam Approach. So 2 changes. I think that this is probably very likely going to happen. I don't know if they'll get rid of Approach, but at the very least, I think it was a huge oversight that they did not make this legendary. So really, that's the only complaint I have about it. I mean, the other cards are very powerful in it, but there's a lot of spellbook cards that are very powerful. Ultimately, Approach of the Second Sun needs to get the hell out of there. And we need to get it made into a legendary artifact, in my opinion. So that is one that I do think is coming down. I think that nobody is happy playing this, man. The only people that are, I don't even think the people that are playing it are happy. They're just doing it because it gets wins. So the next one is kind of a surprise, okay? This one is my personal opinion. I think I'm going to get a lot of pushback on this one. All right. We're going to go a little blue here. Discover the Formula. All right. Discover the Formula. This card should be a sorcery. in my opinion. It goes into that control narrative that when they let that you can play it off turn. It is extremely powerful, and yes, it's expensive, but blue is going to let you ramp, especially in a Simic. I think that the only thing that this card needs is to be a sorcery. It is unbelievably powerful, especially when you're shuffling it back into your deck, when you're casting it twice with like Galvanic Iteration or something like that. There's so much Seek and Izzet. There's so many other things you can do with it. There's so many repeating things you can do with it. You can make things cost less and less and less and less. 3 non-land cards that in Perpetually game they cost less. I mean, it's very, very, very powerful. And I think the fact that it's an instant is an oversight. This should not be able to be played on your turn against you. It should not be able to play it on your opponent's turn. The main thing is it essentially gives them whatever answer they want. If they have enough mana on the board, if they have 10 mana on the board, they can play this, immediately draw the cards, and immediately just find the answer for whatever you're doing. Whether it's a board wipe, a counterspell, a destruction, it just immediately lets them pull whatever answer they want, just magically pull it out, which is kind of the idea, I guess. But I think in that way, it's very, very overpowered in that. I think it needs to be just adjusted down. Maybe there's a mechanic they can put in it where it's all right, we're back. Sorry about that. We had a little bit of a hiccup there. Sorry about that. So maybe there's a mechanic in it. Say if you cast this, you may cast this spell as a sorcery. Yeah, they're trying to silence me, guys. They're trying to silence me. If you cast a spell as a sorcery, you can only choose one card. Or give it flash and say you may cast the spell as flash. If you do, you may only choose one card. But seeking 3 cards and reducing their price off your turn for 6 is just an insane value. I think that this one really does need to be adjusted. So that's another one. I mean, I might get some pushback on that one from my control players. So another one that we all hate. I'm trying to do one from every color here, and I'm going to do one from every color. You know it. It's Inquisitor Captain, guys. You know, guys, it's Inquisitor Captain. Okay. This one is a little trickier to adjust, but this one is absolute crazy spam. And I think the flexibility on this one is it's the problem. It's hard to think of a possible adjustment for this that would really get it without ripping out the core mechanic. So basically, it lets you spam stuff in Clerics, which is extremely useful. 3 or less, it pulls Righteous Valkyrie, it pulls all kind of stuff. If you have 20 or more creatures on the battlefield or in your hand or all those places. So you guys know it. I don't need to go over it. Mana value 3 or less. I think that one of the ways that we could adjust it is we could say mana value 2 or less. That will certainly bring down its usefulness. Because it won't be able to pull stuff like Righteous Valkyrie or Elite Spellbinder, anything like that. That really does nerf it, I think, too hard. I think that the right thing to do with this one, and I want to say that I don't know if I'm 100% correct on this one, but my instinct is telling me that casting cost needs to be changed. I think that needs to say 2 white and 2. I think the flexibility to play that in multiple decks or non-mono white decks just gives it so much variety. You can play this in Orzhov, you can play this in, you can play in just about anything as long as you have a spare white anywhere. It fits in. I think we need to kind of lock out that mana. I would even say 3 white and 1 to really, really say, hey, listen, if you want to get this card, you can't run Orzhov. You can't run Orzhov. It's going to be really, really hard to mess up that mana base. I'd also maybe bring down the power and toughness to 2 so it's susceptible to shocks or any kind of low power destruction, because right now the only thing that's bringing it down is a 3 or higher from red. So maybe bring that toughness down to 2. and maybe increase that casting cost, maybe focus it really hard on white, that might be the case. It's going to be a really difficult one to adjust, but I would imagine that an adjustment is coming for this one down the line. Absolutely. It's a very powerful card. And listen, I like playing with it. But it is one of the most dominant cards out there right now. I think the casting cost and the toughness are going to be the hardest thing. I think messing with the gut mechanics of that, maybe making that 2 or less mana is going to be tricky. I think that's going to nerf it too hard. I think it just needs to be more vulnerable and tricky, so it's a little harder to spam. So I really think that's the only adjustment it needs. Now this one is going to hurt me, man. It's going to hurt me to do this one, but it's the best black card there is right now. Sanguine Brushstroke. This has probably single-handedly in black has won me more games than any other card. Definitely. Sanguine Brushstroke is powerful. Unbelievably powerful. It brings Blood Artist out, and I don't even think Blood Artist is really the problem. I think Sanguine Brushstroke is the problem. Now, if you're not running a blood deck, it's not. It might. I think the black cards, for the most part, were mostly balanced, in my opinion. I don't think any of them were crazy. I think this is probably the most OP one. Am I expecting an adjustment for this one? Probably not. I would say probably odds on it's probably not going to be adjusted more than it is. But just because it's seeing so much play, it's such a staple in black decks, I think it might get nerfed. And I think the only way that it could get nerfed is, and I think the only way that makes sense is don't mess with Blood Artist, don't mess with the blood token. Whenever you sacrifice a blood token, you may pay 1. If you do, you lose 1 life and you gain 1 life. Multiple of these on the board, just sacrificing blood tokens like crazy is basically an instant win, even against mono white life gain. If you're locked out of that ability by mana, it still makes the card amazingly good, but it does slow it down from those instant kills where you're just cycling cards over and over and over again and draining life. You can only do that as many times as you do. And I know you have to pay 1 to do a blood token, but I don't think that that's too bad of an issue. And a lot of times you don't even have to pay 1 to do a blood token, because you can do stuff like Deadly Dispute. You can sacrifice, you can just sacrifice artifacts with Deadly Dispute and do that. I don't know if that's coming, but I think this is probably the card that most people would complain about black out of Alchemy. I don't really know if there's any other card that's any good. Cursebound Witch is tough, but it's really random. That's the thing. Cursebound Witch, being what it is, with its spellbook, it has really good spells in its spellbook, but it's totally random. None of these other ones really are effective enough to see regular play. City Stalker Connoisseur is balanced. This is really the only one that sticks out to me as being a little unbalanced. Now, that was pretty much one for everything. That was red, green, artifact, blue, black, and white. There is a card that is not in Alchemy that needs to be adjusted from Alchemy. It is too powerful. You might know what it is. It's always Mr. Problematic here. You know what it is. You guys know what it is. It's a problematic card, man. Hullbreaker Horror. Hullbreaker Horror is unbalanced. In a Simic ramp, and even a Dimir ramp or anything like that, this is an OP card, man. This card is way, 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 way too powerful. By the time that you can generate enough mana to get this out, you basically control the entire battlefield. There's no stopping you. This with Lier is basically an instant win con. And you say, oh, Jade, it's 7. 7 for a 7/8 that completely controls the counter, that completely controls the battlefield, is flash, can't be countered. It's basically indestructible. It's basically invincible. Because all they need to do is cast it when they have 8 mana, and then it can't be, they can just bounce it back to their hand, it can't be countered, it can't be killed, it immediately pops out everywhere. It's a good idea. It's a cool idea, but this is just a control mage's wet dream, man. It needs to be brought down. And the only thing that I can really think of, I think it needs to be a little bit more expensive. I think we might need to see 3 blue on there. And additionally, whenever you cast a spell, I think we need to put a tax on there. I think we need to say you may pay 2 mana, and if you do, return target spell you don't control, and return a non-land permanent to its owner's hand. It controls the field and the stack. That is correct, Raven. It just controls everything. It is the ultimate control creature that in and of itself is a 7/8, so it's way beyond the ability of red to burn it. It's way beyond the ability of blue to counterspell it. The only thing that's going to get rid of it is a massive destruction. However, it can just flash itself back out into its hand. It's ridiculous. It's basically a win state in and of itself. And, I mean, it's just not good, man. I even tried to build decks around it. It's just an anti-fun card, man. Because the rest of the game is just trying to pin it down. And it's basically just impossible to do that. Discard can get it if you're lucky. But if you're playing a control deck, Azorius control or Dimir control or Izzet control, anything, this is just the ultimate card, man. This really needs to be brought down just because it's not fun to play against. So that's really the only non-alchemy card that I really think needs to be adjusted. I think that's the only one that didn't get hit by the alchemy hammer. And I think we do need to nerf this one. I don't know how. I really don't. Again, that's one of those like the nuts and bolts of the guts, unless they completely change them. Maybe get rid of flash, maybe increase the casting cost. And again, whenever you cast a spell, I think a tax on there would help. You may pay 2 to activate one of its abilities. That way, it's an activated ability and not an immediate trigger ability. So if they are mana tapped out, they can't get it off. Or maybe they need to pay 2 life or something like that, or sacrifice an island. There needs to be a downside to this card, because right now there just isn't a downside. There's no negative to this card at all. It's everything you want and more. So that's the only one that I think that is out of alchemy that needs an alchemy adjustment going forward in the play queue. Aside from that, those are one for each of them. Did I do one for each of them? Red, green, artifact, blue, black, white. Yep, I did one for every one of them, guys. Aside from that, I don't see that any other changes shifting up the meta too much. I think that's about it for alchemy. If you don't like alchemy, and you don't have to worry about these things, but I'm not even that mad that they're going to change them. You know what I mean? A lot of people are upset, oh, I paid for the cards, I got this card. Well, I mean, bans happen too, and you paid for those, and you get the refund, but yeah, you're not losing the card, you're just getting it adjusted. So either way, I don't think it's that bad of a thing. I don't think it's a nightmare. I think that overall it's fairly balanced, but we need to curve out these certain ones of them, especially control. Control is just it's choking out as it does. Control just gets way too powerful, and I'm going to talk about that the heavy control meta in a future video. So I'm going to leave it there, guys. I don't want to repeat myself too much. Tell me what you think. Tell me what you think about this. I want to hear some comments. What do you think needs to be changed? What do you think I forgot? What do you think I overshot my boundaries on? What do you think I'm wrong about? Let me know everything. I want to get some discussion going. Come by the Discord. Let me know. Leave comments. Like the video. And until next time, I've been Jay Villain, and you've been great. Bye-bye.